Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. With the French Grand Prix upcoming, Mercedes reckon a further update is in the works that might well be the best one that they have had so far this season, reckoning though it might be invisible to the naked eye, i.e. something under the car or something in the car itself that is not particularly noticeable, but might be a key difference maker as they want to get back in the championship if they can, or at least fight for race victories. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. Pretty sure we hit 4,500 subs today, getting like 2k in the last couple of weeks, so that's fantastic stuff. French Grand Prix is coming up. Thought it was actually kind of crazy, the two French drivers, Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, how similar their statistics are, number of races, points earned. Gasly's ahead by 1, podiums it's 3-2, wins it's 1 apiece, so thought that was interesting. Now speaking of drivers, firstly the Kyalami circuit next year apparently is going to be coming through, going back to South Africa for a Grand Prix there, possibly at the expense of Spa, not yet confirmed, but Max Verstappen and other drivers not happy at all that Spa might be out of the calendar. But yes, return to South Africa seems likely for next season. Now speaking of drivers, Piastri, there's a big question mark about him. It seems certain he will get a seat somewhere, either with Williams for Nicholas Latifi or at another team. His kind of mentor manager Mark Webber has tried to get a spot for him elsewhere, ideally probably in the McLaren for Riccardo, or in the Alpine of course, where he currently resides as I guess a reserve driver right now, the reigning Formula 2 world champion. He's going to get a drive next year. Where is it? That's a question mark. Now for some reason, maybe not for some reason, maybe it's understandable, but Alonso's been having to answer a lot of questions lately about his future at Alpine, despite probably being the better driver of the two this season. Yes, he has less points than Ocon, but he's the only driver, I believe, on the grid to have outscored his teammate and still be behind him in the standings, because generally a lot of bad luck for Alonso this season. I think there's really no denying that. But he's up to answer a lot of questions about his future. Some have been asking him, like, look, are you holding back the next generation? To which he says no, but other drivers are, because he's still quick, right? Which I think is certainly, certainly a valid statement, to be honest. Now, he has also mentioned, like, to solidify the point that he will be there next season, that the team should start focusing on next year's car sooner than maybe other teams, just because I guess he thinks this year's car is good enough to get fourth in the constructors or whatever. Like, therefore he's thinking, okay, focus on next year's car so that maybe we can compete with the front three and maybe make the sport less boring, as he's kind of been describing it as recently. But some of the fellas at Alpine haven't necessarily been giving a straight answer as to whether Alonso is going to be there next year, right? He hasn't re-signed a contract. He's kind of leaving it until, I guess, the summer to really talk about this with Alpine and what they want to do. They definitely don't want to lose Piastri as potentially like a next superstar in Formula 1 to another team and for him to go elsewhere. They want him to be an Alpine. And Ocon still has a contract. Alonso's is at an end. So the rumour has it that, yes, he probably is well placed to sign an extension with Alpine, but progress needs to be made because no agreement as of yet. And Otmar, the team principal over there, has definitely been raising a few interesting questions about this, right? Especially, I guess he was asked the question about the fact that Alonso has had a fair few reliability issues this year. And of course, like, it makes sense for the team principal to defend the team and the issues that Alonso's car has suffered. But he does actually go on to say there are several reasons why he hasn't scored points. I remember the incident with Schumacher. His defense in Canada cost him a penalty. It's like, I think it was the defense at the end of the Canadian race where he was defending against Bottas, weaved on the straight, got a 5-second penalty, lost points. But I'm pretty sure that was it a DRS failure or was it just an engine issue? I think Alonso ran into some sort of engine issue in Canada, which really meant that was the only way he could defend that position and gets a penalty for it. Like, and then of course has been talking about it quite a lot ever since. So it's a weird situation really that the team principal is like, he's defending the team much more than Alonso and piling a fair bit of the blame for Alonso's kind of weaker race results than might be expected onto Alonso himself, despite the fact that that's not really backed up by the data, I suppose, or at least backed up by, as kind of Chris looks through right here, a lot of the situations that happened so far this year, breaking down when and where things went wrong. A lot of it was engine issues, honestly. Of course, we saw even in the most recent race in Austria when he was left on the grid, couldn't start the race, still had the tyre warmers on, bit of a shambles, right? And of course, strategy hasn't helped out the team either. So thought it was just an interesting insight really into what might be happening with Alonso and that team next year. Let's talk upgrades then. Alpha Tauri, they've been going backwards. Obviously, they're going to try and bring some stuff, but doesn't seem overwhelmingly likely they'll be able to catch up in the constructors to where they'd like to be, especially where they were last season, at least being competitive at a lot of races, Gasly especially. Ferrari, of course, we looked yesterday, floor upgrades potentially coming, might help them run the engine at a lower rate that, could help them compete with Red Bull as the season progresses. Can't really afford any more engine penalties. Now, one team that has been so good in reliability, not just this season, but previous seasons as well, has been Mercedes, right? The fact that Hamilton has, I think, one mechanical DNF since 2017 or something is just probably one of Mercedes' best statistics as an organization, to be honest. The fact that they finish races so consistently. Now, yes, back in Australia, I think, and in Spain, they did have issues with the overheating overheating of the engine that might be expected with the smaller side pods that they have. Now, we'll see. As you can tell, the heat in this room is pretty hot as well here in the UK right now, but also in France this upcoming weekend, it's going to be a hot one. So that may well come into effect here when we talk about potential engine overheating and the issues that might cause these teams. We'll discuss that more in a second. But Mercedes are looking to bring their best upgrade of the season within the next couple of rounds. They said that they're going to keep bringing small upgrades kind of race after race. Now, maybe nothing special here for, of course, the upcoming race this weekend in France, but maybe for the Hungaroring or like after that, right after the summer break in Belgium, like they might be bringing some significant upgrades, right? And they reckon it's the best upgrades of the season so far. This is kind of the description right here that is pointed out in the article, that yes, Mercedes might still be 2 or 3 tenths down to where they want to be to Red Bull and Ferrari to actually compete for race wins, but we did see in Austria even a circuit that hasn't been that good for them historically. They were rather close to Ferrari and Red Bull in qualifying, which was unexpected. The crashes kind of set back their weekends from many different perspectives in the end. Still saying that they've got to solve those issues though, and like best result would have probably been a 3rd place there anyway, as of course it turned out to be at the end of the race. But going on to say this, actually, the fact that bouncing is effectively no longer an issue, and there will be significant upgrades coming to the W13 in the next 2 races here in France and next time out in Hungary. Visually, not necessarily spectacular, but apparently highly efficient according to the team. Our best upgrade will be one that you do not see, say the engineers mysteriously. So this is rather interesting. People have been trying to think about what this might well be. It might well be the floor of the car, right? That's kind of the key issue that a lot of teams are talking about right now. I think a lot of teams are looking at Red Bull's floor because we've seen some incidents where the car has to be raced off the track and teams get to look at each other's floors. And it seems like there's probably more complexity to the Red Bull floor than there is for Mercedes. And of course, Ferrari trying to upgrade their floor, because the better floor you can have, the better downforce you can generate from the floor, the less rear wing you need to run, and therefore you get a less draggy car quicker in the straight. So that's arguably what Red Bull have kind of been able to do, and Mercedes believe that maybe upgrading their floor is obviously a key factor. They had to do some upgrades to the floor initially to solve the bouncing. Now that's kind of dealt with. Now it goes to actually upgrading the floor to what it can be. So they're kind of behind the development cycle, but potentially have better upside as a result. And one of the positives actually was that Andrew Chauvelin said, I think this was a couple of weeks ago after the Silverstone Grand Prix now, and he mentioned the fact that the upgrades they brought to Silverstone worked exactly as expected, right? They had some upgrade packages there, and earlier on this season, whatever changes they would make did not necessarily seem to work right. Whatever they were doing to Hamilton's poor car, like it was just making the experience worse for him, and even he said like, okay, please give it to Russell for the latter half of the season to actually test these changes. But like it seemed like after Silverstone, whatever they changed, whatever upgrades they brought, I guess they thought, okay, maybe this upgrade's worth a tenth, 2/10 of a second. It's going to help us in this corner, and it pretty much performed exactly as expected, which if anything would be a surprise to Mercedes to know that after the first couple of races that they can bring changes that actually work as intended. So that gives, I'm sure, them good confidence that whatever they're trying to do here with their upcoming upgrades is actually going to be very effective. And even Christian Horner has pointed out that he does believe Mercedes will be competitive at the French Grand Prix. Like they've been quick there historically. Their car seems to suit the circuit. Once again, a smooth track, not a Monaco, not a Baku, of course, Azerbaijan. So they should be competitive. But as I say, the other issue here potentially for Mercedes that have probably been the team that suffered with this the most so far this year, even though of course their engines haven't actually conked out, but you guys remember the end of the Spanish Grand Prix and even Australia, I believe, Hamilton was probably catching Russell at the end and maybe could have taken that podium off of Russell if they'd have battled it out for a couple of laps. But I believe he was told, as maybe was Russell, to just back off a bit, secure the P3, P4, because of course Sainz went out and it was Verstappen that retired early on in that race, or maybe halfway through or something, and they had a P3, P4 secured, and the engineers told them like, look, calm down, don't drive to the max because we have potential engine overheating issues here. And those recurred again in Spain when Hamilton had made that miraculous recovery from the back of the grid after having that first lap collision with Magnussen, I think it was, all the way through, he had a punch or whatever it was, and then he made it all the way through back through the field, overtook Sainz for I think it was P4. It would have been a phenomenal recovery. It still was a phenomenal recovery, but he had to rescind that position back to Sainz at the end because like he effectively had to manage engine temperatures because it was scorching in Spain, and it's more than likely going to be scorching once again here in France. So maybe that's one of the kind of downsides to this Mercedes build model, is that with the smaller side pods they don't get quite as much air intake as other cars and therefore might suffer more from overheating. So they're going to hope that it cools down, but it's probably not going to. Very much intrigued your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Just to finish out with this, the longest teammate pairings here in Formula 1. The longest one actually, Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello, 104 Grand Prix. Hamilton and Bottas nearly broke the record, but didn't quite manage it with 100 at Mercedes. Coulthard and Mika Hakkinen at 99, Webber and Vettel at 94, and then it goes on downwards from there. Massa and Alonso as well, that's a pretty legendary one. But very much intrigued your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, take care of yourselves, get some water down your neck, and I'll see you next time.